Last question today. Hey, David, will a more crowded Democratic primary help the more progressive candidates in that primary, like Elizabeth Warren and potentially Bernie Sanders? So there's a couple ways to approach this. Primary voters are often more politically diverse than general election voters. But right now, the circumstances are those of very significant overlap between candidates. A lot of the candidate ranking sites aren't even on the same page as to who is the most left or center in the Democratic primary. One example of that is that the I Side With is a website that has a pretty good quiz that it asks you about your politics and then it tells you who are you closest to. It labels Kirsten Gillibrand as more of a socialist, for example, which I just don't think is accurate. I don't know of any way that we would defend Kirsten Gillibrand's politics as socialistic in any way. So, number one, you have circumstances where you have a ton of overlap between candidates. What is the real difference in policy between Gillibrand and Julian Castro, for example? Are they really big differences or are they relatively minor? Elizabeth Warren and Bernie, for example, if he were to run, are there how significant are the differences there? I spoke about that on the Monday show with Benjamin Studebaker, and there are differences, and excuse me, as I punch my mic, their approaches are different, but they end up pretty similar on policy. So I am not saying this to suggest that in the end, we should just go with the person who can build the biggest coalition, because those are exactly the types of electability games that I want to avoid playing. But what I am saying is it's not clear to me that more candidates, particularly when they overlap so much, will be in any significant way better for the more progressive candidates. I do think that more progressive candidates will be held back to some degree if they are from the Northeast of the United States. And again, I'm starting to sort of get into these electability games, but that is going to be more of a liability than being more to the left, because the elected officials in the Democratic Party are pretty significantly to the right of where Democratic voters are on issues related to economic equality, healthcare, the minimum wage, on so many different issues. The electorate is already to the left of Democratic elected officials. So I think that the smear possibilities as being out of touch Northeastern liberals, if those happen to be the more progressive candidates, and I think you understand what I'm sort of getting at, is going to be the biggest liability. But I'm answering the question. I'm trying to avoid playing these electability games. Overall, when the field is more and more crowded, merely mathematically, particularly when a lot of the candidates are similar, it just splits the vote more ways, right? I mentioned Castro and Gillibrand. Warren and Bernie is another possibility, although ideologically they come from different backgrounds. So the vote splitting potential is one that can be very difficult to predict who it will actually help in the net. And only time will tell at this point. But to answer the question, I don't think that tons of candidates benefits the more progressive 2020 Democratic candidates. Send me your thoughts. We've got a great bonus show for you today. We're going to talk about very, very exciting and interesting stories, although I'm out of time to tell you what they are. Become a member at www.joinpakman.com. Become a patron at patreon.com/David Pakman Show to get instant access to the world famous bonus show.